Everybody, welcome to this episode of Coffee with John. Looking forward to talking with Cara Lash. Cara, it's great to have you on the show. Your brother was on my podcast, I think 7-8 years ago. At the time, he was the youngest person on my show. I think he was 12, maybe, or something for his business that he had. So I'm excited to have you. Your company is called Caravan, and if someone were to go to your story, what they're gonna see is, and I want to read the story because I love it. Caravan was founded by Cara with a simple goal to make outdoor travel easier to plan and more enjoyable to experience. I think it's great. And so it's about escaping the city and getting into nature, and you make it easy. And so let's just talk about the importance of getting outside. You know, today people are, many people are at their desk, they're working from home. And people have to almost make a little extra of a conscious effort to actually go outside and be in nature. I think we can point to a lot of studies that show how being in nature and being outside decreases cortisol, decreases stress, raises your frequency, increases vibration, connects with the world, gets you more grounded, et cetera, et cetera. And so let's just start off and talk about, why are day trips and these types of experience and getting out into nature important?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. So I think all around, no matter where you live, it's really important to get outside and in nature. And I think when you go outside with people as well, the conversations that you're having in nature are a little bit deeper, and you're able to kind of connect with yourself a little bit more than over a happy hour or a dinner. But specifically, I live in New York City, and people in New York City especially hardly even see grass and trees on a day-to-day basis. So Caravan really is your one-stop shop for getting out, getting into nature, and connecting with others. So it's been wonderful to watch it grow, and personally as well, being able to get out from my day-to-day in the concrete. We always say concrete to countryside. So yeah.
So a couple things. You graduate college.
Yeah.
You start working for PwC. You're doing consulting, coveted job for many.
Yeah.
Something that, people are just, working really, really hard to get. And you left that job to start this business. And so what was it about just corporate America that, that wasn't in alignment with you? Because it's a great shift. It's a big shift, but I think a lot of people are experiencing that right now. There are, I've seen different studies, but before COVID, there was 1,000 LLCs registered a day. And then post-COVID, I've seen studies ranging from 3,000 to 10,000 a day in the United States, registered LLCs. Many of those don't become companies. Many of them do. But I think many of them are the Cara Lashes that do something, and then the Cara Lashes that don't. So what was it that got you to kind of jump?
Yeah. So going back, I was in college doing, recruiting for PwC. I was really wanting to get into consulting, which is a very corporate job. I always kind of saw it as a stepping stone. I never saw myself in 30 years working for a consulting firm, but I did think that it was the right way to kind of get my foot in the door in the business world. And if all else failed, I would have that experience to fall back on. So started in consulting for supply chain management, later went on to work for our C-suite on their strategy and operations team. And just overall, I think it really helped me, work on my corporate abilities and my email skills and my presentation and Excel. And honestly, I use those skills every single day. But what made me kind of decide to leave, because it's really easy to get, the golden handcuffs of, one step above and never wanting to leave, is that when I looked 30 years from now, where did I see myself? And it was always either working for a startup or owning my own. So without having kids and a lot of financial responsibility, I thought that the best move was to leave right now rather than kind of get stuck.
how did you know you wanted to start your own business? I think a lot of times people want to start their own business. So what were the, if you can give, your concrete, countryside, but what are
Yeah.
some concrete those conversations that you had with yourself? Because I think a lot of people are having those types of conversations right now, trying to kind of unpack that for themselves. Is it the right time? Did you start doing this on the side and then
Yeah.
left one kind of took off? Because I think, and this is for the, think big community, just because you have an idea, you also want to make sure it can make money. You want to make
100%.
sure it's something that people will actually buy. So
Yeah.
to just, jump 100% sometimes isn't always the prudent thing to do. And so how did you kind of, do that?
Test the waters. Yeah.
Yeah, test
So I was working in consulting a year in. I looked at myself and I said, I want to either start my own company or work for a startup. So I started thinking of ideas. I've always been into the camping and glamping world. It's a very niche industry. Originally, I wanted to work for a company like AutoCamp or Parks Project. The roles are very far and few. So I thought the best way was probably just to try to start something on my own, at least to just have something on my resume outside of a consulting job. So originally I wanted to buy my own campsite, and I asked my dad about it, and he said that's going to be $20 million. And I was like, okay, I'm 22 years old. I don't have $20 million.
Yeah.
So I started just thinking about other ways that I could just start something. And I started building a tech platform that let people plan and book road trips. So I was developing that for around 2 years, and honestly just trying to figure out like what I could do to make money and leave my corporate job. And as a marketing initiative, I decided to take a bunch of people out to broadcast the platform and share it. And that's kind of where I discovered that the in-person side of taking people out of the city was probably the place to be for making money and actually making it into a business. So I was doing that while I was working in consulting. I was double hatting it for probably around 2.5 years before I fully left. Because I wanted to make sure that it was actually going to be successful before I made the move.
Yeah, and you work out the kinks. So you start as planning all of these bigger trips, and you move to this. Where did AI play a role to cause a shift in your business, and how did you? Were you in front of it? Were you kind of in real time with it? Like how did your business?
So we started developing the web platform before ChatGPT was even spoken about, really. And then it started coming up, and I was less concerned about it being a conflict and more like this could help us develop the platform, because at the time it wasn't where it is now, where it can plan a full trip for you. So at the time I was like, this is great. It can kind of help us develop this platform. And then as time kind of went, I started seeing that this was probably going to be really hard to get people out of ChatGPT or Claude or other AI platforms and into our platform, where you're paying for someone to plan this for you and our platform to do it. So it was very much real time, and I made the pivot, I think, before I realized it was not going to be successful. I just saw something else more successful. So it felt less of like AI was the reason I wasn't able to do it, and more that I just saw something else taking off.
Yeah, I get that. So camp seems to be kind of a theme for you, did you go to camp?
Yes, I went to camp.
Where did you go? Tamarack?
Yes, I went to Tamarack up until I was 22 years old. So
okay. I went to Tamarack. Yeah. And so what was it about being a camp? Was being a camp and a camper as a kid something that kind of infused the energy of kind of this entrepreneur, you merging entrepreneurship with camp?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was always like #1 camp fan. I was going to work there every single summer. I still am like, how can I go back? And that definitely infused my love for like the outdoors and camping and this really wilderness side. I was always taking the more wilderness track of camp. I was a tripper taking out camping trips. I was an Alaska staff taking out a trip from Michigan to Alaska. So those also gave me a lot of the skills to where I am building this I'm basically building a summer camp for adults. And I use a lot of those skills that I learned as a camp counselor and as a camper. So it's the backbones of my business for sure.
Yeah, it's great. I love Tamarack. I was a Tamarack camper. It was the greatest. I tap into it, especially I went to, I was in specialty Western trip, Kennedy, and Kennedy was 5 weeks at the time. And it was great. I often think about this 10-day canoe trip I was on where we had to portage canoes and it seemed impossible to do it for a mile, but then you kind of do it. And it's great. All right. So
during and then having the best time after. Yeah.
So let's talk about, so you create these experiences for people. I think, Cara, that I think one of the things that I notice, and when I talk to, I'm a business coach, and when I'm talking to clients a lot, sometimes they have a problem figuring out how to recalibrate themselves. You know, everybody seems to be busier today, regardless of technology. And sometimes it seems harder to slow down today. And so your experience kind of forces people to slow down, but then we need somebody to actually commit to a day to slow down. And so what do you say to that person who's working really hard, doesn't want to kind of take one of 10 or so day offs to do this, but they need it to be kind of, to recalibrate back to center, to be more effective in everything else that they do? I mean, how do you communicate that to your prospects?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we really just try to drive that you're in the city for months on end. When's the last time you even saw a tree or touched grass? And if you weren't wanting to do this alone, it was going to be way more energy to put into it. And Caravan's here to kind of let you relax without having to lift a finger. So that's really important on like the logistics side. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible for these people, because I think a big, reason why people don't want to do it on their one day off is because they don't want to think about all the planning that goes into it. So we're thinking of everything from transportation, guides, where are you having lunch, who are you sitting with at lunch, so that's more on the logistics side. And then I think just in order for you to be your best self at work and in your busy day-to-day, you need to reset and have kind of a day to yourself and reflect so that you can bring that energy back to your day-to-day.
Seems to me that your business sells kind of a space to breathe and a space to reconnect with yourself.
100%.
Which is why, as you said earlier, you have different types of conversations with people when you're in these experiences. Anytime, you hear it all the time. People say, oh, I went to this retreat. I did this group. I met the greatest people. It's like when you go to camp, you meet, you're like, you leave your best friends with everybody because you're in a space that you aren't normally in.
100%.
But that is a natural space. So, and so what do you do with all of your experience that you talked about to kind of really create that space from the minute somebody picks up the phone and calls you to the time they get on the bus, the van, whatever it is? And like, what's the experience from beginning to end like?
Yeah, so we've kind of very much like streamlined all of our trips to be very specific so that everyone's having the best experiences possible. We'll meet at Washington Square Park in the morning, do breakfast together, coffee, a circle up. We always make sure that introductions are made so no one feels like they're off to the side, not able to make new friends. We bring in conversation starters. We're really trying to curate a day where people feel very comfortable being in an experience that they're not normally in. On the bus, we're playing fun music. We're all talking to each other. And then on the hike itself, we're making sure that people are kind of hiking with maybe someone that they wouldn't be normally hiking with, and really just trying to build connection throughout the trip. And then we're ending at like a farm to table lunch, a winery, some sort of place that you're able to relax and sit next to people over a meal. I think the shared meal part is also really unique and nice, coming from a city that you might be sticking to your own kind of group and going to dinner with the people you know. And then we're busing you back to the city and you're able to enjoy your night. We get everyone back by around 6 p.m. So the whole day, we're really just trying to curate an experience where people are able to be themselves, get into deep conversation, and feel like they're around friendly people.
Yeah. Have you thought about franchising your model?
We've gotten a lot of requests for Chicago and Austin.
Yeah.
So we're right now focusing on New York as a market, just because we're trying to really build out our partnerships with our farms and our orchards and our transportation and all that. But in the future, we'd love to go to different cities.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of cities could use it, and a lot of people could use it.
100%.
So you're planning the events. You're going. I'm assuming you attend probably most of them or all of them.
So we actually have 15 trip leads that help take out the trips. But I like to go on a lot because they're fun. Yeah. But some of them I'm not going on.
Yeah. So where's your favorite place to hike or ski?
Yeah, so I love hiking in the Hudson Valley. There's a hike called Storm King Mountain that's really pretty. And then skiing, we go out to Camelback Mountain a lot, which is in Pennsylvania. That's nice because all of our drives, we try to keep under an hour and a half. Just because no one wants to be in a bus that long. But there's so many amazing spots that you can't really get to just by train from New York City. So we try to find niche locations.
Talk about the operations of the business for a minute. How, I think sometimes, the external part of the business, it sounds like so much fun, and it's incredible. But then for all of the, entrepreneurs or, future entrepreneurs that are listening to this, a couple of things you've learned about the operations and behind the scenes of the business.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the trips, and I try not to make it as known on the trip because no one cares. And also it's supposed to be the most easy day, of your week. But there's a lot of operations on the back end. If you think about all the transportation, the guides, the hikes need to be a certain mileage away from the farm that we're going to, all the dietary restrictions that go into it, the snacks, the meals, the finances behind it all. We're selling individual tickets for a lot of our trips. So they have to meet a certain capacity. So there's a lot of marketing that goes involved to make sure that people know about the trips and that you're launching them within a certain amount of time. There's waivers, there's liability, there's insurance. There's like a lot of stuff that goes on in the background, which is also why we kind of try to do these business to business types trips as well, because it's a lot to deal with and people don't want to do all that.
Yeah. So, I wanted to thank you for that because, there is that element too, because I think the person listening, one of these people who have, registered an LLC but done nothing with it and have an idea, the idea always has to be backed by the operations.
Yeah.
Profitability, watching expenses, all the moving parts, what you got to be in front of with everything. It's a business. And so how do you continually keep it fun for you?
That's a great question. I mean, it's easy to get overwhelmed by stress. I mean, it is a business and you're trying to make it as successful as possible. But I just remind myself that I am getting to do what I love, which is being outside and hiking. And if you told me when I was at camp 10 years ago that I would make hiking my full-time job, I would be pretty excited. So I try to remind myself of where I came from, which is a camp lover. And then also I think the 4 years in consulting showed me that this is a pretty nice job now. Yeah,
that's great. If you can find a balance of what you're talented at and passionate about, that's
100%.
That's the ultimate. Yeah. And it's funny how early seeds planted can lead to businesses. When I was 18, my dad gave me a set of tape sets by Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Success. And the minute I listened to it, Cara, I knew I wanted to start a business coaching company and write books and kind of do all of that. So it's, the seeds are planted and, they end up sprouting for everybody, maybe at different times.
Yeah.
To a lot of people who are in their 40s and 50s and wanting to start their first business. And things of that nature. So what advice would you give to any entrepreneur who wants to, who understands their talent, who understands their passion and wants to start a business?
Yeah, I'd say, like you just said, you need to follow your passion, but you also have to be good at that passion. So follow something that you're good at. And typically, it's sometimes your passion. And if the two align, then that's something that you could be really successful at. But yeah, I think it's also really important just to follow something that's working, not just because you want to do it.
Yeah.
And you could get stuck down a business that's not successful just because you were passionate about it, which it's been very stressful.
Let me ask you this. How did you, because I think sometimes people worry about this too, leaving your job. How did you do it? I think it's important, people leave jobs and, I think it's important never to burn a bridge. So, but I think it's a fear of people and it's a concern of people. And so shed some light on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I 100% agree that you never want to burn any bridges, because worst case, I'm going back to the consulting job I was at, and I want them to be welcoming with open arms. And I think that for me, obviously, it was very challenging. I wanted to be doing the best job that I could while I was working in consulting, because I wanted to leave on good terms when that happened. And while I was double hatting it, I didn't want them to know anything about the business that I was potentially going to start on the side, just because I think people, subconsciously can think that your priorities are different as soon as you mention a business that you're starting on the side. So I'd say, one, try to keep it away from your company while you're doing it until you absolutely need to leave. And when I left, I really tried to just still leave on the best energy, the best, I always gave it my all because I wanted to leave with a good foot forward. And they were really, really supportive when I told them that I was leaving for something that I was really passionate about. And it went very well.
Yeah. When I left commercial real estate, I gave them 3 weeks. I called every manager, every leader in the company, thanked them for, what I learned. We left on great terms.
Yeah.
I think, people leave, and I just think it's a great example of how you can leave with a lot of integrity and not, and continually build the relationship capital and relationships you have with those people.
Yeah, I gave my company, I said, as long as you need me to stay. I will train the next person to take over my role. And I ended up staying a little bit longer than the traditional 2 weeks. But, I just wanted to leave with the relationships that I had.
Yeah. So you start your business. What was the scariest part of the first 6 months?
I think that the most stressful part was, so we've planned around 25 trips from April until November. And we try to get brands, corporations, communities to book out each of these trips, but they are booked. So without knowing demand, I think that's been the scariest part, having to take the risk on 25 charter buses, 25 venues without knowing if these trips are going to sell. And, we have last summer data to kind of fall back on to say, we think it's going to be successful, but you never truly know until you're in it.
Right. Yeah, you got it right. 100%, 100%. And so what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
Yeah, I think that just making sure that you have a fallback plan. So when's the last day that I can cancel? What are the ways to get out? What do I need to do? Having a plan of action instead of just saying, well, maybe it'll work out.
Yeah.
It helps a little bit with the stress and has taught me a lot.
I think it was Jeff Bezos who said, your plan B should be to make plan A work. That's reminds me of like what you're saying, you figure out how to get in front of and, ahead of real time. And, you're running a business. For you, it's not just hopping on a bus and the experience. You're doing all the planning to make it frictionless for everybody else who is experienced. What you've created is incredible. I think it's, I would think that there's going to be a way more demand. I mean, the more technology, that comes in, the more people need to really recalibrate. I think it's great. All right, quick speed round, Cara.
Okay.
A book that's had a big impact on you.
Into the Wild, about Alaska.
Yeah. Great book. Great book. If you could have coffee with anybody, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Who would it be? Emily Weiss. I think her story, she started Glossier. I like that story behind just women in business.
Okay. What creates the ultimate experience?
I think the community piece, who's on the trips, what's the energy behind it? Is it authentic? I think that's a big piece.
One thing that you would recommend to every aspiring entrepreneur who is one step away from starting something is?
You just have to do it. Do it scared.
Yeah, do it scared. That's great. That's a great line. That's a great
Yeah.
line. And again, you don't have to do it full time out of the gate.
Yeah.
But that's a great line. Do it scared. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that piece of advice and I was doing it scared.
Best piece of advice on top of that you've received?
I got a great piece of advice saying that you need to start every single day with the one thing that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So every morning I say to myself, what's the one action and the one task that sounds the worst to do? And I start every day with that task.
Great. I'll add one thing to that. Add every day when you wake up, reminding yourself of at least one thing you're grateful for.
Love it.
And if you can end your day with that, it really bookends your day. And diffuses a lot of the negative thoughts that come into your head. Yeah.
Important to be grateful.
Cara, tell everybody how they can connect with you, learn more about your business, sign up for a trip, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Our website is caravantripplan.com, and we are also on Instagram and TikTok, Caravan Trip Plan, and all of the information is there.
This was great, Cara. This was great. Congratulations on your business. Congratulations on making the jump. Congratulations. Think Big community. I'm just going to end with what Cara recently just shared with us. If you are one of these people that have registered an LLC and have done nothing but want to, and you want to start building your business 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, whatever that looks like, an idea journal that starts building pieces daily together, just kind of sit down, do it, make small incremental jumps, and do it scared. That's like my new favorite line.
You can use it. I give you credit.
I'll give you attribution. Cara, this was great. Appreciate you. You can check out all of Cara's information again at caravantripplan.com, and you can reach me at johndwoskin.com. Cara, this was awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, John.